Welcome to Empowerment Radio. My name is Dr. Friedemann, and I'm so glad that you decided to join me. Empowerment Radio is about giving you the insights, tools, and solutions to address some of the most challenging aspects of our daily lives. So sit back, relax, and empower yourself. What is something we can do to become more resilient? So we talked about calming down the mind, which I think is just the basis of it all, right? I mean, our mind is working in overdrive, and sometimes I have to admit, when I have been really engaged and let my mind work really hard, I even work at night. I dream about things that have been happening, or still somehow think about them as soon as I'm waking up, and probably half asleep as well. So yeah, calming the mind down, emptying the mind, making sure the mind is really in a place of harmony and place of, rechargedness, because that is also something we are not realizing, how often the mind may be just drained. That is the basis for resilience. That's certainly number one. You cannot really find resilience if your mind is super stressed out. But once you have engaged more in calming your mind and getting your mind into a good baseline again, now what can you do to work on your resilience? Now, I see resilience like a muscle. It's like a skill. It's not something necessarily that you are, born with and you're naturally better. Maybe some of the qualities or some of those inner resources are for some easier to get to than others. But in general, it is a muscle that needs to be practiced and flexed and utilized. And so I'm going to tell you a few of those resilience resources. And to practice them, I give you an affirmation. Each of them has an affirmation that you can just use and remind yourself of the mindset. Because a lot of what resilience is about is also to have a new set of beliefs, a new perspective or attitude towards life. And that is something that we have to practice internally to remind ourselves, oh, wait a second, I'm not seeing myself the old way anymore that made me feel stressed and powerless. I'm seeing myself in that more resilient mindset. So the first resilient pillar or resource is acceptance. And from acceptance, then focusing on the solution. So you could say there are two. The first one is just accepting what is. And we all know how easy it is for us to resist whatever we don't like. You're hearing something, or you're dealing with someone, or you have an opinion about something and you don't like it. And so you get attached to that feeling of not liking it, and you're resisting whatever that represents inside of you. And the more you're resisting it, the more energy you're giving to it, and the more energy you're losing, which is one of the reasons why so many people feel drained and powerless right now, because of that lack of acceptance and that drainage of energy through resistance. Now, I'm not saying that you shouldn't stand up against something you don't want or like, but the 24/7 engagement in, I resist it, I don't like it, I hate it, that is what needs to be shifted into acceptance. Just simply saying, okay, this is what it is. This is a situation. And then, which is not giving up, by the way, this is not a sign of defeat or complete, surrender and just letting things happen to you. It's simply making yourself clear about the reality that you're dealing with, or the reality, how you see it. And then you go to the next step, which is, now what? What can I do with it? So you're thinking about what the solutions could be for you to have a better outcome, or to change the situation in a more positive way. And this is something you want to practice, not when you're, again, feeling overwhelmed or stressed. You want to practice this every day. Let's say you are driving along, and then all of a sudden, all lights on red, you're sticking there in a traffic jam, and what can you do? You can resist it. You don't like it. And then you say, no, I'm going to drop the resistance, and I'm going to ask myself, now that I accept that I'm here, not moving, what can I do to make the situation better? This can be calling a friend. This can be listening maybe to some book on tape. This can be just breathing. This can be like my wife always does, sending Reiki and positive energy to all the people around that are also stuck in traffic. You can utilize this gifted time in a way that is making your life better. Or you are, maybe going through the day, and all of a sudden you're realizing that you have a big stain on your shirt, and you're at work and you feel like very self-conscious. How many people have seen this stain? Mustard, ketchup, whatever. What can you do? Accept that maybe some people saw it, and maybe people thought whatever they thought, messy eater or poor thing. What can I do with this situation? Well, what you can do to make it better is to learn to simply be open to know that you don't have to be perfect. Be open to also accept that you cannot control other people's opinions, and it's okay for you to have maybe some people judging you, as long as you are learning to not judge yourself. So there is an opportunity to make the situation by simply having more compassion, more understanding, more acceptance for yourself, no matter what other people are thinking. Imperfection can make you feel stronger if you are embracing it. And when it comes to right now, the election situation, maybe there is something also that you feel that you can accept. Right now, I accept that this is a mess. This is something that's challenging. There is a lot of maybe divisiveness or conflict. And what can I do with it? Once I accept it, I'm going to be a source of harmony and peace. I'm going to be someone who is positive. I'm going to be someone who is actually bringing people together and building bridges and accepting that we may have differences, but there are more things that connect us than divide us. And that's my decision. See, when you are going through acceptance and finding a solution, again, you will never feel that a situation is only negative, because you always see that there is something for you to grow from and something for you to make yourself and the situation better because of it. And the affirmation that may help you there is, I completely accept what is, and I focus on what I need to do to make the situation better. Whatever problems I'm facing, I always find a solution. Now, another pillar of resilience is optimism. And optimism is basically the realization that everything is temporary. Everything, no matter how bad it may feel, has also an expiration date, and it will change. Optimism is looking at life not for the obstacles or problems, but for the possibilities, the potential, and that what may come afterwards. And for that, you really need to look at life as that what, just 24 hours in a day can really model to you. That after every night, there comes a day. That after the darkness, there is light. That when we are in pain, often soon there is peace afterwards as we're healing or feeling better. When you're practicing optimism, you just automatically feel like that life is more that river that flows. And even though there may be sometimes a little boulder in the way and you may feel stuck, eventually you find your way around it. Eventually it's gonna keep on moving forward. And seeing that more in a bigger perspective, knowing that nothing is eternal, all is simply temporary and moving forward, can give you also a lot of hope in that time and really feeling like, yeah, I can see life with a greater ease and a greater flow. And the affirmation for that is, I know that there is day after night, that there is light after dark, peace after pain. And I'm optimistic that whatever happens, something positive will transpire. So that's also something you can practice. And in that regard, I would invite you to go back into your past and think about times when you did feel stuck, or when you felt like, oh my God, this will never change. Like a client of mine who had been dealing with anxiety for a long time before she started working with me. Now, looking back, she said, I am so glad that I had this anxiety and that I worked with you, because it really changed my life. I'm a more grounded, compassionate, and resilient person than I ever was before. I lived on autopilot. I lived in this illusion of having to control everything. And now I know what I can control, which is myself, and that I can also be in that place of optimism and positivity, because I see now that, like with my anxiety, it went away and something better came afterwards, which was ultimately my understanding that I can love and accept myself for who I am. And that's a beautiful example. And you may have examples like this too, where you were struggling maybe with one of your kids, or you may have lost your job, or you were dealing with health issues, and you felt this gonna last forever, this will never change. And then look how everything somehow evolved and changed, how doors opened, bridges were built, and you could see, yeah, I actually have more reason to be optimistic than be pessimistic. Another pillar is to get out of the feeling of being a victim of your circumstances or the people around you, and taking responsibility. Now, I know that no one wants to see themselves as a victim, because it's such a negative connotation. But often we do, especially when we do feel powerless. It feels like, something is done to us. And often it is. It is that in the moment, maybe something has been taken away from us, or something has been really done to us to hurt us. But it doesn't mean that whatever happened needs to keep us in that role of the victim. And that's, again, you're never powerless. You always have a choice to change your perspective on it and to do whatever you can to make the best out of it. And this, from the victim place to taking responsibility, also includes that you're asking yourself, so what can I learn from whatever happened there? How can I grow from this? And how can I, looking back, say, well, maybe I should have done something differently, or maybe I should have done it better. And to practice this, you can really, again, go into your past and ask yourself when you felt betrayed, hurt, victimized, and then see how maybe even if it's a long time ago, there are still nuggets of learning and growth in those situations that give you a sense of, yeah, I can take responsibility. And I can also understand that maybe this is something I was a little bit conspiring into happening. When it comes to the election, it may be something that 4 years ago, you can look back and say, I was too complacent. I was too like, I'm not really into it. And I have really not voted. Maybe now you can say, well, I take responsibility for that, and I learn that I want to be more engaged, and I want to be someone who actually does a better job in taking their sacred responsibility for the future of the country. Or maybe you have felt that, you were someone who, in that victimization role was going into that, us versus them mindset, and was dabbling into too much anger and maybe even hate. And now you can take responsibility and ask yourself, well, is that really how I want to be? Is that really my truth? And then you can say, well, maybe this learning opportunity is for me to have a greater sense of what it does to me when I am going into this negativity, how it actually, eats me up, how it's darkening my soul, how I feel just heavier whenever I go to that more, bad place of emotions. And I choose always love, light, compassion over darkness. That can be also an opportunity where you say, now I grow, even from that circumstance that I certainly don't prefer right now. And the affirmation for that could be, no person or circumstance can take my power away. I choose to take complete responsibility for my thoughts, feelings, beliefs, and actions. And the last pillar I want to talk about, the last pillar of resilience, is that network of support. How important it is to just reach out and ask for support. And there was this psychologist, Emmy Werner, who was studying in the 50s, 700 children that grew up in Kauai, and just wanted to see for 40 years, it's a long project, how they were developing. And in particular, she was interested in 200 of those children that were coming from so-called risk families that were, rather poor and had difficult circumstances in the household that they grew up in. And she found that 71 of those 200 children actually were coping very well with the difficult circumstances, that they grew up into very responsible and empowered adults that took their lives into their own hands and navigated out of that sense of poverty into making something out of themselves. And she wondered, how did they do this? And what she found, that one of the greatest resilience factors they had was that these kids were connecting to people that believed in them, people that nurtured them, supported them, but also guided them with boundaries or showing them that, this is the right path and this is the wrong path. So having this kind of mentorship or support, that network of love and understanding, made all the difference for these children. So when you feel right now alone and isolated in your anxiety, don't stay there. Reach out, whatever it takes. Reach out to people that, maybe are from, a complete different political spectrum, but that they care about you. So you just connect not through politics, you connect through the heart, you connect through that, what has always been there is something that was the foundation of, your friendship or your relationship. You can also reach out to people in the church. Maybe you want to reach out to people that just live next door and start making those connections so that you realize that what I think really the world needs right now, that we're all in the same boat. Maybe we have all these different ideas and hopes and beliefs, and maybe we look different, but in the end, we are all the same. We're all in the same journey, all in that same boat. And unless we are all coming together as one to address the challenges that we globally are dealing with right now, there is maybe no future for this planet. So we need to really overcome our ideas of being so different, us versus them, and come together as one people again. Now, this is what resilience is about, and there's certainly a lot to practice. Now, I talked about values, and I think I'm going to do just a separate show on values, because unfortunately we are running a little bit out of time, and I wanted you to have this meditation on really being calm and resilient during this election period. What I would like you to do, though, about the values is just to ask yourself if you're now thinking different, believing different than 4 years ago. If you now have noticed, oh, I veered a little bit off. Maybe I'm not really seeing as clearly who I want to be and who my parents raised me as. Maybe I believe a little bit more in safety than in freedom. Maybe I believe a little bit more in social media than in science. Maybe I believe that the borders need to be secure, even if it means we can throw children into cages. Whatever it means for you to take responsibility over your beliefs, look into how your values may have shifted in the last 4 years and simply ask yourself, is that really okay? Is that really who I am? Isn't that a source of anxiety that I actually betray myself by simply now letting things go or making excuses for others, even though they're acting in ways that I would not want my children or my family to act as? So just check on the values and then make some adjustments. And as I said, we can do a whole other show on that. Now let's meditate. Hi, Dr. Friedemann here. Thank you for tuning into my YouTube channel. If you're interested in learning more about fear and anxiety, here you'll find guided meditations, webinars, and interviews with some of the most renowned experts in the field of empowerment. Delve into the over 230 videos and more to come every week.